Now the two categories, asexual and sexual reproduction. In the asexual reproduction, there is formation of new individual. There is formation of progeny due to the contribution of single parent. For the formation of new individual, there is involvement of only one parent. That's why this reproduction, it is known as uniparental. So here there is involvement of single parent. That's why it is known as uniparental. But in the sexual reproduction, for the formation of new individual, generally there is involvement of two parents. So simply you can call it as biparental. So now there is involvement of two parents. So it is biparental. Now let's see how the new organism is formed in this type of reproduction. In sexual reproduction, there is formation of new individual through the process of formation of gamete and fertilization, fusion of gametes. Yes, gametes, they are the sex cells produced by the sex organs. So what will happen here? Male individual result in the formation of male gamete, that is sperm. Female individual result in the formation of female gamete, that is egg. Male and female gamete, now they will fuse. They will fuse. You have studied in the previous classes, fusion of gametes, it is known as fertilization. After the fertilization, there is formation of a cell known as zygote. And this zygote, it will undergo growth, and after the growth, it will form new individual. So you got this? There is formation of gametes, then fertilization, formation of zygote. Zygote will develop and form new organism. So how the new individual is formed here? This is clear. Now let's see what will happen in asexual one. In asexual reproduction, fusion of gamete is absent. No fertilization of gametes. Fertilization of gametes absent. So the new individual, it can be formed in other several ways. Like in some of the organism, there is formation of a specialized structure, that is spore. Yes. In the 10th class, you might have studied certain examples of organism forming spore. Yes, it is produced in fungi, algae as well as bacteria. Algae, fungi. Along with that, another one is binary fission. In the binary fission, parental cell divide and result in the formation of two daughter cell. Yes, it occurs in unicellular organism where parental cell divide and form two daughter cell. So can you cite certain example? Yes, binary fission seen in bacteria. Next one is budding. Budding is present in yeast. Yeast is a unicellular fungi. Along with that, it is seen in Hydra. You have studied it in Hydra. Then fragmentation. Fragmentation. It is seen in filamentous algae, fungi, as well as other groups. What happens in the fragmentation? Let's say this is a filament. This filament, it will break. After the breakage, there is formation of two fragments. It will undergo breakage, due to which there is formation of two fragments. And each fragment has the ability to form new individual. It has the ability to form new individual. Got this? Filament will break, the fragments which are formed, they can grow, they have the capacity to form new individual. Yes? So we can write example. Which example I have cited here? Filamentous algae, fungi, and in the mosses there is presence of filamentous structure, that is protonema. Protonema in mosses. This is a filamentous structure present in mosses. Yes, this filamentous structure, it will break and the fragments which are formed, they will form new individual. We will discuss more about the protonema in the chapter Plant Kingdom. Another one, regeneration. Regeneration, again you have studied this method in the 10th class with respect to a flatworm. Can you cite the example? Very good. The example is planaria. So the two modes of the reproduction, they are very much clear to all of you. Now it is being said that in the unicellular organism, growth and reproduction, they are synonymous. Yes, growth and reproduction, they are similar. So now we will try to understand this. In unicellular organism, growth and reproduction, they are synonymous. They are same. Yes. So now we have to explain this concept. We have to explain this fact. For this, the unicellular organism which we can deal here, that is bacteria and amoeba. Now, just now I have discussed growth. There are twin characteristics of growth. One, there is increase in cell size, and second, due to the cell division, there is increase in cell number. Twin characteristics of growth. One is increase in cell size. Second, due to the cell division, there is increase in cell number. Now in this unicellular organism, when cell division will occur, unicellular organism, when cell division will occur, so cell division occurs, it means it is resulting in growth, right? But now these organisms are unicellular. So when they will divide, there is formation of more unicellular organism. So it means due to the cell division, now the progeny size is also increasing. The number of individuals, they are also increasing. There is formation of progeny, so it means it can also be considered as reproduction. Got this? Cell division results in growth. They are unicellular, due to which cell division also results in increasing the progeny size. It helps in reproduction. So it means growth and reproduction, these two events, they are similar. They are synonymous. If they are synonymous, so tell me what you will say, whether they are mutually exclusive or they are mutually inclusive events. Exclusive means different, but here they are same. So you are going to call them as inclusive events. So let's write it down. So in unicellular organism, growth, for growth I am writing G, for reproduction I am writing R, both of them they are synonymous. They are synonymous, so you can call them as mutually inclusive events. Or you can say the two terms, growth and reproduction, they are not clear. Their usage is not clear in unicellular organism. Now coming to higher one, higher plants and animals. Higher plants and animals, now they are multicellular. It means now the cell division will only result in growth. It cannot be accompanied by the reproduction. So in the higher plants and animals, growth and reproduction, now they are different. They are different, so now you are going to call it as mutually exclusive events. Mutually exclusive events, right? Now after this, again the question whether it is a defining or non-defining feature. So let's see the status of reproduction in living and non-living. Living. Is reproduction is present universally in all the living organisms? No. There are certain organisms in which the reproduction capacity is absent, like mule, worker bees. Along with that, there are certain human couples who are also sterile. So, in all the living organism, reproduction is not present. It is not present universally. What are the exceptions which I have cited here? Exception is mule. After the mule, then sterile worker bees and sterile human couples. What about the non-living objects? In the non-living objects, reproduction is totally absent. So it fulfills this criteria, but this criteria is not universally present. That's why now you are going to call it as non-defining feature. Non-defining feature. So got this? Now after the reproduction, we will deal with the last category, that is consciousness. Now the next feature, that is consciousness. Consciousness is the ability to sense the stimulus. It is ability to sense the external stimulus and respond to it accordingly. So consciousness, it is ability to sense environment, sense stimulus and respond to it. Response to it. Stimulus can be physical, it can be chemical or biological. External stimulus can be physical, chemical or biological. Consciousness, it is a feature which is present in all the organism, whether they are unicellular or multicellular, whether they are prokaryotic or eukaryotic, it is unexceptionally seen, or you can say shown, by all living organisms. Right? Now, in the case of higher animals, to perceive the stimulus, to sense the stimulus, there is presence of sense organs like nose, eyes, ear. Now, looking into the consciousness, I would say human being is the only organism which is conscious about himself. Yes. Looking into the whole diversity, human being is the only organism which is conscious about, which is aware about itself. It means human beings, they have an additional faculty of self-consciousness. Human beings are only organism which are aware of himself, aware of themselves. Only organisms which are aware of themselves. So it means human beings, they have additional faculty of self-consciousness. Yes. Now, what do you say? Defining or a non-defining feature? Surely it is a defining one. It is defining because it is present universally, just I have told you, in all the living organisms. Unexceptionally present, and in the non-living objects. In the non-living object, this feature is totally absent. So fulfilling both the criteria, that's why again it is going to be known as defining feature. Got this? So till now we have studied how many features? 5 features. So let's quickly review all these features with respect to their presence and absence in non-living objects. So let's see the status of these 5 features. Starting with the metabolism. Yes, just now we have discussed, keep on saying this, in the living organism it is present, non-living organism absent. Second one, we can see cellular structure. In the living organism, again present. In the non-living objects, it is absent. Third one, growth. It is present in the living organism but as well as in the non-living objects. But we have discussed how the growth in two of them, they are different. What type of the growth is present here? Intrinsic, and in this case, extrinsic growth. Reproduction. Present in living organism. In non-living objects it is absent, but it is not universally present. Now the last one, that is consciousness. Consciousness present in all the organism from simple to complex. Non-living objects, they are totally absent. It is totally absent. So among these 5 features, how many features they can be known as defining features? How many? Yes, metabolism, cellular structure and consciousness. 1, 2 and this. The third one, they are defining features of living organism. Now I would like to ask one question here. I want to put one question here. Among these 5 features, what do you think, which is the most technically complex feature of organism? Yes, which is the most complicated one? The most complicated one is consciousness. So now we will try to describe why consciousness is known as most technically complicated feature. It is known as most complex feature because in the consciousness, for sensing the stimulus and to respond to it, there is involvement of several organ systems. Yes, to sense the stimulus and to respond to it, there is involvement of several organ systems. To explain this, I am citing one example. If you touch a hot rod or a hot cup of tea, then what happens? This stimulus which is received by the hand through the nerves, this stimulus is sent to the central nervous system. Yes. Now the central nervous system, they will convey. Central nervous system will convey the message to the muscles. When the message is conveyed to the muscle, immediately your hand is withdrawn from that hot plate or hot cup of tea. So here, to sense the stimulus and to respond to it, there is involvement of nervous system. There is involvement of muscular system. You withdraws your hand from there, as well as there is also involvement of emotions. Sometimes you start crying in response to it. So in the consciousness, there is involvement of several organ systems. Several organ system. The one which we have studied here, example, here there is involvement of nervous system, there is involvement of muscular system. So for the consciousness, for the ability to sense and respond, several organ systems they are required. That's why it is known as most complicated feature associated with the living organisms. So this is clear to all of you? Another question which is need to be answered here, whether a man lying in coma on life support system is living or non-living. Whether a man lying in coma on life support system is living or non-living. Answer to this question lies in the quantitative presence of consciousness in the organism in that particular state. Now the person who is in coma has lost the requisite quantity of consciousness. Consciousness is lost, but still person exhibits life. Why? Because the metabolic activities, they are still occurring inside the organism. If in the organism consciousness is retained, again the organism start to be as living. But if consciousness is not restored, not regained, otherwise the person is a dead organism. So let's write it down. Person in coma has lost requisite quantity of consciousness, but still exhibits life, still exhibits life, because the metabolic activities, they are occurring inside the body of organism. Metabolic activities, they are occurring. If in the organism consciousness is restored, then this person will again start its life. It is said to be living. But if consciousness is not restored, this person is dead organism. So you got this? If the consciousness restored, then living. It will start its life again. And if the consciousness is not regained, otherwise it will be dead organism.